Welcome back to War Thunder and welcome aboard the Chieftain Mk 5. And this vehicle is fantastic, but it also has drawbacks. Now this is not a tank review, this is just a first impressions where I just, ramble on what I think about the vehicle where after having played it just for a few battles. However, in this case again, that's not true, because it's so similar to the Mark III that I have played excessively in both arcade and realistic, that I know for sure this is not really different, or there is no big difference in overall performance like between the Leopard 1 and the A1A1, but there is always one nice thing, and that is a stabilizer. That was an awesome shot, taking a T10M out of the match right from the beginning. This player is most likely out of the match, I guess, due to the heavy tank spawn points, which are nothing that I can agree at higher battle ratings when it comes to the value overall, especially when we look at the Chieftain has the advantage of a spawn point cost that is most likely similar to a medium tank, and in fact it is listed as a medium tank. It's more or less a main battle tank, but when you want to know the Chieftain in a nutshell, it has a great turret frontally. The upper frontal plate is okayish, but can be penetrated by the object 268 with the APHE shell. The lower glacis is paper thin for a main battle tank. I mean, even the Hellcat can penetrate it, so the American 76mm with the APHE shell. That was a pitiful shot, not doing a lot of damage to the T10M. And I aim for the driver's hatch and take out the driver and the gunner. I reload a hash round and aim for the very same spot. Good night, sunshine. Now what we have here is an absurdly good gun. It is a 120mm gun, and that is a high caliber gun. However, it has the reload that rivals a lot of the 105L7 variants. I mean, with a reload rate of 10 seconds being listed, and when we go into the crew and have a look at what the gunner actually can do on my expert crew, it's 8.16 seconds, and 7.7 seconds is just awesome. And that kind of is absurd because you have also a very good stock performance. So you get both or two shell types right from the beginning, with the next shell type not being that important. Again, I load a hash round. So the APDS round has 400mm of penetration, and then you finally can rack up those Soviet medium and heavy tanks. Really reliable, most of them. I mean, there are still some really awkward shots at an IS-4 and the turrets of the IS-3 and T10M, but most of the time you will punch through. The muzzle velocity is also very high, and then you also have a 120mm hash round that can penetrate, if I'm not mistaken, 152mm of armor. So you have a very high penetration shell and a very great damage dealing shell. But you still can get one shots, and that was the third T10M that I encountered, and I had no chance of seeing him, at least in my opinion. I was focused on the very close range, and he sniped me very good through the gun mantle actually. So beneath the gun he hit me, penetrated with his awesome 122mm APHE shell, and there I was. The reload on this 120mm gun is off the scale if you compare this to the Russians, to the Germans with their 128mm, and even the M103s, and also within the British, the Conqueror's gun. That just is awesome, and I really have to ask myself, how do they manage to sustain a 7.7 second reload for an ace crew, that is, when, you know, this is also two-staged ammunition. And we look at other tanks such as the Mouse that has two loaders and a very big fighting compartment that has a reload rate of just under 20 seconds. And there you can see how we are actually waiting for the rest of our team to secure for everybody 300 additional spawn points. We wait. At this point, the enemy team is already capturing C, probably with potato trucks, which is a decisive advantage of rushing tactics, if you allow me that little joke. Yeah. And here we go. I tried to flank, and before we go into the first engagement of this second battle, I have to apologize for the lack of videos lately, and I have many projects in my head that I want to be done. Certain guides, especially regarding Kursk. Oh boy, I had a very interesting battle on Kursk, but I didn't record it because, you know, I'm an expert. And I don't have the time currently to fiddle around with the replay. I mean, I will make it work, no doubt about that. But yeah, and then we can see we have our first customers, Russian medium tanks. Something that I don't want to see in my Leopard when facing them head on. And this is the power of the APDS. I can punch right through it. The second one tries to flank, but a shot into the crew compartment deals an end to him by hitting the ammunition and the driver and blowing him up. The second one still has a little bit of damage. Look at the angle! I punched right through it. This is the power of working high penetration APDS. An ATGM missed me, that's always a very nice feeling. Trying to find out where he was, there it is. And he got taken out by another Chieftain Mark III this time. So I think the only real difference between the Mark III and the Mark V up until this point is the horsepower. And that leads me to the negative side of this tank. That is the mobility. Now, the tank that I'm currently driving is from a test drive, more or less fully upgraded, at least when it comes to the weapon system and the mobility. It doesn't corner that well. It feels very heavy. The ground resistance seems to be very high on this tank. I mean, it will accelerate, it will move, but it's not maneuverable. It's not even close to a Leopard. I mean, it sometimes is even, or seems to be, much worse than the T10M that has around about the same horsepower to ton ratio, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just, you know, taking those statements right out of my head. Remember, this is the first impressions, so don't count too much on those facts that I'm throwing around. So you can see, this tank, it doesn't corner at all. Yeah. But again, it is fast enough to one-shot this T-62 from behind. The APDS goes through the engine block, through the transmission, and still has the power to kill the crew member. So this is the advantage of APDS compared to APHE. You could do the very same thing with AP rounds, like on the stock rounds, or APCR, but you know, APDS is a very good all-round weapon. So, do I like the Chieftain Mark V? Yeah, but it's nothing new. It is not like the difference between the M60 and the M60A1. It's not like the difference on the Leopard 1 versus the Leopard A1A1. It's also not the difference between the STB1 and the Type 74 if we go for the other nations. It's more like overall the difference between the Tiger 2H and the Tiger 2H SLA. Really not that much difference. Of course, the difference being the premium. Where did that round go? Where did that round go? Yeah, and so the difference is not that decisive. But it's a backup vehicle for free, basically. Of course, 380,000 research points expensive, and you have to do the grinding of the modules on and on. I want to do further testing of this vehicle. I want to give you a tank review on that. For now, I can't give you more than this first impressions. Again, I'm sorry about the lack of content. I try to do my best, but you know, work and such. But I do my best. So please give this video a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more, and as always, we'll see each other on the battlefields of War Thunder.